Alex Jones, your host, and again, we're going to be here for the next 3 hours. We're going to give you an in-depth report from the border with Glenn Spencer. Now that they've canceled the virtual fence that never was, and of course have stopped work on the imaginary tinfoil fencing that they put in for photo ops. It is a complete hoax that we have any type of real border security. The border security is there to only catch shipments of heroin, cocaine, and marijuana, not controlled by the big mega banks who publicly, I mean, it's been all over the news the last few months where major banks admit that, I mean, we've covered it here. In fact, guys, search Bloomberg, major bank admits it's involved in laundering narcotics money, because then it'll give you a whole bunch of banks. But I don't want to just go from memory. I want to actually be able to, by the last 30 minutes, have those news articles. I mean, I've got the bank's names in my head, but I have to double check because it's a bit foggy and I want to be 100%. The point is they've caught Federal Reserve branch banks. They've caught the CIA repeatedly. They've caught CIA aircraft crashing full of cocaine. I've talked to people that are involved in the Army with these surveillance blimps. And I've talked to Border Patrol people, and it's come out countless times, and I saw it in the Austin American Statesman years ago. The state police caught an 18-wheeler full of pure cocaine, and the feds just came and took it and then gave it to a bank. They just took it and gave it back to the, quote, owner. Yeah, there it is. Banks financing Mexico's gangs admitted in Wells Fargo deal, and Wells Fargo just had to admit that they were basically laundering drug money and financing the cartels, specifically to buy the aircraft, weapons, you name it. In one deal, they found 128 black suitcases packed with 5.7 tons of cocaine. The smugglers had bought the DC-9s with laundered funds they transferred through two of the biggest banks in the U.S., Wachovia Corporation and Bank of America Corp. Bloomberg Market Magazine reports in its August 2010 issue. Again, they just did the search I told them, and you'll get hundreds of news articles, every bank you've heard of and every other bank you haven't heard of. I mean, this is a pure narcotics trafficking state. So why shouldn't the U.S. government allow certain defense contractors to run kidnapped women and children? And if they're going to do that for decades publicly and get caught constantly and not get in trouble, why not go ahead and snuff film the kids? They're perverts that'll pay even more for that. So it comes out mainly in European press about our corporations running snuff films. I mean, I've read in Italian papers and you name it. I mean, it's, you know, little toddlers having their heads blown off. I mean, our government is Satan incarnate. I mean, it's just absolute evil. Anything goes. But then I heard local news last week hyperventilating on air about there's a bar in downtown Austin, and it was all over the news. The police department was having press conferences, and it was just so serious. Somebody got a $100 bill counterfeit past the people at the bar, and the bar apologized for taking it. And again, APD's looking at it. They're really concerned right now. Our criminal government is pumping over, if you count all the different programs together, $200 billion a month. $100 billion plus in the quantitative easing program, over $100 billion in other programs. $200+ billion a month being pumped out to their subsidiaries worldwide with no public accounting. No one in the government's allowed to see who it's going to. But then later it leaks, we find out it's the U.S. media, select corporations, foreign banks, foreign corporations, foreign individuals. I mean, it is just bankers and CIA and government in there stealing everything. Pension funds, that's why they reported back in September 8th, 9th, and 10th of 2001, $2.1 trillion missing from the Pentagon in just the previous 2 years. And a lot of people said, well, the budget's not even $1 trillion a year back then for the Pentagon. Now it's over that. How are they stealing trillions? That's more than the whole budget. It was the pension funds. It was the investment funds. That's why you're hearing now, oh, military people, you're going to have to get your own insurance when you get out of the military. Oh, you're going to have to pay for your own food when your arms and legs are blown off when you're in rehabilitation at Ramstein to be flown back to the U.S. That's why they've got all these PR charities running now to raise money for the troops through the general public, because there's not going to be health care, there's not going to be pensions. All of those promises and contracts are being broken and will be completely broken because everything has already been stolen. There are thousands and thousands of wealthy brokerage firm and banker execs and stockholders in these banks who are so wealthy. I mean, you'll read about them purchasing for $3 billion, a couple 100-acre island, one of hundreds and hundreds off Greece. I mean, you'll just read about them. It's unlimited wealth. They stole everything. It's already gone. And you can tell cops this all day. The average cop, they just on a power trip for the state. They just salute the black uniforms and salute the New World Order and say, doesn't matter if my standard of living's going down. Talking bad about the government is treason. Huh. And, I mean, it is just, and that's why the globalists are moving on every front to just absolutely set a total police state up, because they're going to get away with all of this. And there's a method to their madness to fully bankrupt the country so that you are now completely dependent on government, to wreck the free market, to wreck family farms and ranches, to wreck local businesses, to wreck Main Street with the Pentagon-run Walmart grid. Total Pentagon front, over 40% of world retail sales, integrating in the RFID chips, the universal product code, IBM, the big six mega banks, Microsoft, all admitted government subsidiaries through the fascist control grid. And I know I'm already ranting and I have all this news to get to. It's just mind-blowing to watch this happening out in the open. And it makes me so frustrated that it's so out in the open. And sure, people are waking up, but not fast enough. And the control grid to suppress the awakening and to stop the American people from taking back control of their government and bringing these criminals to justice is just slamming into place. Don't you understand the globalists have to go to total tyranny? They have committed crimes so huge, so monstrous, so colossal, so gargantuan that they must bring in total tyranny to protect themselves and to continue their scam. And they've got the general public just so brain damaged and brainwashed and diverted and distracted, and the language has been reduced down to almost nothing. And the average person just clicks on the computer all day thinking they're getting something done when they're not. We're like rats running around in a treadmill. And the whole planet is just hurtling towards absolute global depression by design to fold us into the new environmentalist economy, which is the planned scarcity and artificial being poor, artificial poverty, the media making it so fashionable to be into austerity. I mean, we are being inducted. The globalists have publicly made the decision, if you go back even 100 years ago, to build a world government, to go with the authoritarian model. And you see it all over the news where they go, authoritarianism actually works really well. Look how good it is in China. Look how good it is in areas like the model that they're using in Singapore. We need that model. And, of course, it's horrible for the individual. It's horrible for creativity. It's horrible for the economy. But they sell this destructive system as if it's good. But I got off talking about the border situation and started ranting about government crimes. Banks financing Mexican gangs, admitted Wells Fargo deal, Bank of America, Wachovia, all of them, just hundreds and 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 hundreds of billions. Just the drug dealer money alone in Wachovia was $378.4 billion from 2004 to 2007. $378.4 billion. And I've heard talk show host talk about me and say Alex Jones is nuts. He says the government's involved in narcotics trafficking. You're talking about conservatively $500 billion a year laundered in the U.S. yearly of drug money directly from the source. That's not counting the recycling of the drug money through the low-level pushers. And then they build giant prisons and put the street-level pushers in their prisons, which are then colleges to teach others how to drug deal. And so we send our kids to college, and that's what it is. The government pushes the Ritalin, the Prozac. The studies show you're 3 to 5, depending on which study, times more likely to use illegal drugs once you've been put on Ritalin or Prozac or other prescription mind-altering drug. So they prime you with that. They tell you don't use drugs. They tell you how to use the drugs in the DARE program, which studies show massively increased interest in drugs. Then the drugs are sold by the low-level government retailer. And then when your kid gets caught with marijuana or whatever it is, they go to juvie. And then in juvie, they get inducted. They get gang raped and beat up if they don't become drug dealers for the higher level, low-level drug dealers in the juvie. And by the time they're 25, they've got HIV, hundreds of tattoos all over them. They think it's really cool that, they have gangster speak and have no idea about human history or anything else. And now they are zombie goblins out selling the drugs to more people to be inducted into the criminal college to then be pumped back out. Then the middle class gets scared, asks for police state to help them, but the police state's really for the middle class. As we get deeper into this New World Order, we see what the Trilateral Commission openly wrote about, what the Council on Foreign Relations openly wrote about happening. And we know how deep into it we've gotten, and we know because we have a roadmap. The globalists have been public about this. They just have such disdain for the public. They think the public won't read it, won't see it, won't care. And to a great extent, that's true. But a lot of people are waking up, are getting involved, and the globalists admittedly are starting to get concerned because what they're doing is so bold. And they're counting on it being so bold, so out in the open, so wild, so over the top that people will just be overwhelmed by it and have a sense of hopelessness. But the only hopelessness is if we don't stand up and don't resist. We know if we resist, we've got a great chance of turning this whole situation around. Obviously, it is big news all over the world today what Hu Jintao, the Chinese president, said yesterday ahead of his visit coming up in 2 days on Wednesday to the United States. Who questions future role of U.S. dollar? Now, this would be bad enough if we were like Mexico, devaluing its currency, but still had exports. But the fact that we've been hollowed out industrially, the fact that our industrial system has been purposefully transferred to China through taxing and environmental rules that made it almost impossible to operate here in the U.S. The fact that the big mega banks gave unlimited loans to the communist Chinese because they were authoritarian and inside deals could be made means that when the dollar begins to accelerate into the depths of its final decline, it is going to have unprecedented effects on our way of life. And when you start thinking about what it'll do to people on fixed incomes, what oil and food prices and commodities prices going up is already doing, and we haven't seen the tip of the proverbial iceberg yet. What it's going to do to people's savings in the bank. What it's going to do to Americans' capacity who are running retail systems to buy these cheap goods that are made in China and to sell them. Just across the board, it is a very, very dangerous time that we're entering. And as people make less money, it's going to be harder for them to buy the products they need. And meanwhile, the media just continues to lie and behave like everything is fine and that we've come out of the recession a year and a half ago and things look great in 2011, while the globalists themselves in the G20 communiques, in their country-to-country communications, they're like, brace yourselves, total collapse, food riots, global geopolitical overthrows going on. I mean, we're entering a very volatile time by design that they openly say they're going to create a world government on the other end of. They've already got the system in place. Now they're emerging publicly. They're now admitting the world government is being established and selling it as if it is the solution when it is the creator, the fount, the progenitor, the culprit of what we see now taking place. So who questions future role of U.S. dollar? China's President Hu Jintao has raised questions on the role of the U.S. dollar in the global monetary system on the eve of a state visit to Washington, saying the current international currency system is a product of the past and that the dollar will be replaced and that he wants it to be replaced by the Chinese currency. I mean, that is so incredible. Here's another one out of the Wall Street Journal. Who highlights need for U.S.-China cooperation, questions the dollar. And you can go on and read his quotes here about... He talks about how we can both gain from a sound China-U.S. relationship and lose from confrontation. So he's saying, just go along with it. We've got the money. We will build the super trains in the U.S. We will own your ports. We will literally own and control Walmart. We will run your country. And China signed on to the New World Order. They said, you're going to give us unlimited development. You're going to make us the main engine of world government in the 70s. We'll have one-child policies. We'll forcibly abort babies. We'll let you use newborn babies for medical experiments. We are completely vampiric and cold-blooded. And David Rockefeller said, you are given the crown of Satan. You are now the king. Prepare to destroy the U.S. And they said, absolutely, we love it. And I want to talk to first-time callers today after I go through this bank of callers. I notice the lines are already loaded, but I want to give first-time callers a chance after we talk to these folks to give us their take on China saying, hey, we'll all gain from working together. We'll lose by confrontation. As the United States does drills off the coast, as China does drills off our coast, as Chinese troops pour into North Korea. That's in AFP and Reuters today, the first time since 1994 when tensions last crested. Of course, we had a war via surrogate, via proxy, with China during the Korean War and the Vietnam War, while the Rockefellers, Arm& Hammer, and others on record owned and controlled the steel plants and the stock in Opel, subdivision of GM, and, of course, Ford, building the trucks, building the weapons, building the missiles in Russia and China to then be shipped and allowed to land in the north at the harbor. U.S. submarines didn't touch them. You're like, well, what was the globalist goal? Have a war, get the troops hooked on opium, bring them back. Those that didn't get hooked on opium got hooked on killing, make them cops. Bring the corrupt drug-dealing troops in, have them run CIA drug dealing nationwide. I mean, this is on record. You know how many Army officers I've talked to who are retired, who the CIA tried to recruit to deal drugs in the U.S.? I mean, I know a couple Army officers in my family, and they were all approached and said no. I mean, America is run by pure evil. Don't people get it? The globalists are totally ruthless. They run both sides, and they don't run the individual American, and they don't have full control over our media. Those vestiges of the free press are still there. That's why they're trying to come in and shut down alternative media. That's why they're trying to demonize people that are pushing and promoting liberty, because they know that they're coming to the end of the cycle, and they either have to get more tyranny in place or they're going to be brought to justice. It's either more tyranny is going to take place and hardcore degradation, or we're going to start back in the other direction. And we're at that key balancing point, that flux point right now. Who calls currency system product of the past? AFP. Who highlights need for Who questions future role for U.S. dollar? And he goes on to say, the dollar is a thing of the past, but he said, how do we replace it with their currency? Now, what did I tell you a month or two ago, a month and a half ago, that announcement with Putin and Hu Jintao, Vladimir Putin and Hu Jintao of China, the Prime Minister of Russia and the President of China, said we're now only going to engage in country-to-country trade, which is huge, especially in raw materials from Russia to China, finished goods from China to Russia, in the Chinese currency. Well, first they said we're going to trade amongst ourselves. We haven't decided on the currency yet, and clearly it's not going to be the ruble, so I said, you watch, it's going to be the Chinese currency. And then it was. They announced that just 3 weeks ago. So a month and a half ago, they announced they're going to do trade with a new currency. Then they announced a month ago or so, 3 weeks ago, that it's going to be between the two nations. I mean, this is happening now. Yuan ruble trade starts as Russia, China shun dollar. Bloomberg. Yeah, it's December 15th, or 3 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago. So all of that is going on. Then, meanwhile, the globalists have to crack down with this police state here domestically, so they've got to launch false flags attacks. Now, if you go back in mid-September, and in Kurt Nemo's article, he breaks all this down and has the video of yours truly, Alex Jones, in September, breaking down exactly what would happen. And again, I'm not bragging, I broke down exactly what happened. I'm saying we know what we're talking about. This stuff's all hidden in plain view. Go read Kurt Nemo's article and then watch the 15-minute video where I said what was going to happen. I said it's going to come out that Israel and the U.S. together designed this. It's going to come out that Israel launched it, and they're going to use it to call for the end of internet freedom as we know it and the cybersecurity takeover of the web, and they're going to launch further false flag attacks on the web, but that will happen after they hype up that the attacks are coming. What do 9,000 locations have going in right now? Giant telescreens. What are they now announcing? Cybersecurity attack, prepare for it, don't trust the web, the feds have to take over the web to protect it. So they're now entering that sector of a false flag attack on the web. They're now beginning to parrot that. When they bring in the full depression, the full dollar devaluation, are they going to let people be on the air? Probably not, folks. They'll probably trump something up if they go ahead with this. We're right up to the stalemate right now. They're waiting to move with total martial law. They're waiting to move with total oppression, total tyranny. Right now, they're lined up on our border like Hitler lined up on the Polish border. Now, if we stand up to them and tell them we know what they're doing, and if we have courage, they may back off and may backstep, as Lindsey Williams said yesterday. These people are not invincible. If they think you're going to go along with it, though, they are going to do it. Now, I told you the government launched that attack. And here it is. Israel test on worm called crucial in Iran nuclear deal delay. Again, Israel's test on worm called crucial in Iran nuclear delay. And then they have the U.S. government and others saying that they tested the jointly made super worm at the Israeli Dimona nuclear facility because they have similar centrifuges and computers as to the Iranians, and that they worked with Israel and then launched it. Now, the issue here is they launched it, and then they came out a month later. This is 3 months ago, a month into it. They launched it 3.5 months ago. And I predicted, and they did a month later, now 2 months ago, that they would then say, see, we've got to have cybersecurity takeover of the web, and NATO's announcing they've got to track everybody in real time, which they're already doing. They're just letting you now know that you have no privacy, no Fourth Amendment. In Europe, they have similar laws about illegal wiretapping and authoritarian systems. They're just saying, we don't care, it's to protect you. When NATO is, again, the European arm of the narcotics trade, child kidnapping, all over the news, and they're going to protect you from the child kidnapping and the drugs they're now announcing. Satan is going to protect you from Beelzebub. Beelzebub is going to protect you from Baphomet. Baphomet is going to protect you from Leviathan. Leviathan is going to protect you from Set. Set is going to protect you from the old serpent. The old serpent is going to protect you from the devil. Confirmed, Stuxnet was false flag launched by Israel and the United States. And on Saturday, the gray lady of establishment propaganda, the New York Times, passively admitted that the Stuxnet virus responsible for crippling Iran's nuclear energy program and bouncing back to the U.S. was engineered by Israel and the U.S. intelligence. And it goes on. It goes on to break it all down. Let me just read to you from the New York Times, and we'll go to your calls. Israel test on worm called crucial in Iran nuclear delay. The Dimona complex at the Negev desert is famous as the heavily guarded heart of Israel's never-acknowledged nuclear arms program. It's all admitted, but then if they don't say so, then we're not allowed to talk about it. Where neat rows of factories make atomic fuel for the arsenal. Over the past 2 years, according to intelligence and military experts familiar with its operations, Dimona has taken on a new, equally secretive role as a critical testing ground in a joint American and Israeli effort to undermine Iran's efforts to make a bomb of its own. Behind Dimona's barbed wire, the experts say, Israel has spun nuclear centrifuges virtually identical to Iran's, where Iranian scientists are struggling to enrich uranium. They say Dimona tested the effectiveness of the Stuxnet computer worm, a destructive program that appears to have wiped out roughly a fifth of Iran's nuclear centrifuges and helped delay, though not destroy, Tehran's ability to make its first nuclear arms. To check out the worm, you have to know the machines, said American expert of nuclear intelligence. The reason the worm has been effective is the Israelis tried it out. So there they are, just admitting all this, but then simultaneously Kurt's article links to Jay Rockefeller, Lieberman, and a bunch of others in the last couple months saying, we've got to give up internet freedom. We've got to have the Pentagon, through cybersecurity, take over the entire web. If you have an ISP company with more than 100 customers, you've got to take government training, and they're now announcing, and get a government license to even operate internet servers, and that you've got to put pieces of equipment in, they say, that openly snoop on everything. This goes back to the 96 Telecommunications Act, where they paid $9 billion to the major telecoms to put the whole buildings and whole floors added on to the AT&T and other systems that everything then runs through. But see, the big companies said, give us money to do that. With little people, they just say, you're an indentured servant. Indentured servitude. We don't care if it violates the Constitution. You will put in all this equipment. Kind of like the EAS system under FEMA in 96. It didn't pay cable, broadcast TV, UHF, VHF, AM, FM, shortwave to put an EAS FEMA box in at the transmitter, remote controlled by shortwave, now by satellite, where every radio station in the country under FCC licensure is under full government control, and you have to pay for that. Well, now they're just going to wire basically EAS software into everything. And what do they say they need it for? Because the Chinese launched the Stuxnet, or the Russians did, sure, and the Easter bunnies did too. The Pentagon has to take the web over. They have to get rid of your speech. They have to recruit all the young kids out of high school to be part of their new cybersecurity army. They have to put up big telescreens in all the major shops and shopping malls now, going in now, telling you to watch out on the internet and watch your neighbors, because they're getting ready to hammer the internet. They're getting ready to tax it. They're getting ready to have Internet ID, tracking you where you go. That was put in 4 years ago into all the Microsoft operating systems. It's just they're waiting, that little kernel. But now Obama announces it last week. Yes, for the children's safety, right as NATO announces it. The total grid going into place right now. And they're doing it all after the U.S. and Israel launched the Stuxnet. And we wrote an article about this, and I saw comments on InfoWars in an article saying, how dare you attack Israel, you traitor? How dare you, Jones? You're going to get it. Because I'm reporting that Israel and the U.S. government have launched yet another false flag, and then publicly brag about it and say, I've got to give up my free speech for the love of Israel's corruption. And then there's the other schizophrenics in there commenting, look at Jones covering up for Israel again, schizophrenically, as I called up Kurt Sunday and we wrote that article together. And I told Kurt the areas I thought were important, sent him over some of the links and statements, then we collaborated on that article. I mean, this is the insanity of people trying to make everything about Alex Jones. Either I'm bad for talking about what Israel's up to, or I'm not hating Israel properly. Well, the truth is I don't hate Israel. I don't hate China. I don't hate Germany. I don't hate the U.S. I hate the corrupt forces that are in there. But it isn't about Alex Jones. And that's this mental illness that I'm sick of. It isn't about me. We've all been trained to fight with each other. Have you ever gone crab fishing? I mean, you can just take a piece of bacon or a piece of ham and throw it in, no hook, just a weight, and the crabs are so greedy that you can slowly pull them up like a dog, you're playing tug of war with. You can slowly pull up a crab and then have your net and grab them up. And when you got about 5 or 6 crabs in the big bucket, they'll be trying to crawl out. And if they work together like fire ants, they would get out. But when they don't attack each other till one tries to climb out and leave. Misery likes company. And when one crab starts trying to climb out to get away, the others come over and grab them. And I was going through some of my YouTube videos, the fluoride video we launched, and another one about how they're training citizens to spy on each other and saying if somebody buys guns or somebody's talking about politically controversial things, go ahead and call Homeland Security on them. And I was covering that in the video, and so I was, just seeing the hit counts. And I'm like, oh, 80,000 in 3 days, that's not bad. Oh, only 25,000 views in 2 days on my fluoride special. It's 10 minutes long and documents it. Man, that's too bad. I wish it was being seen by more. And I looked down at one of the first comments and it said, Alex Jones is pure scum. He's not having attorney Cryer on who got a jury trial and found that the IRS, was basically unconstitutional and that he got off in a jury trial on failure to file. What a piece of trash. What a coward. What an agent. And I just looked at that, and I wasn't hurt by the fact that he was calling me a coward and an agent and scum. I was hurt by the fact that I looked at the guy's channel, and he had a lot of good videos and things on there, and a lot of interviews I've done with people. The good fruit that I've provided, the good work I've done, not because I want accolades, but because I want to defeat tyranny. I want a future. And I've interviewed Tommy Cryer, I think 3 or 4 times on that subject. I've interviewed Joe Bannister. I invited Joe Bannister to come speak at both my speeches in California. It's like it isn't about Israel working with the U.S., launching the Stuxnet and trying to use it to take our free speech away in America. And we have direct connections through Lieberman and others who we know are dual Israeli agents, openly saying take our free speech. And so we write an article about it and say it's wrong for Israel to launch this false flag on us and then try to take our free speech so we can just be a milk cow to supply money and weapon systems that they then sell to China. And then I criticize for telling the truth by people. I mean, Israel admits they helped launch this false flag. I just tell the truth. And so I get bashed and told I'm anti-Semitic because it has nothing to do with that. I'm exposing a corrupt government. It's like they say, are you anti-Asian because you're exposing China? I've been asked that by media. No. Am I anti-German because I criticize Hitler? Or have I criticized the fictitious Don Corleone or somebody real like John Gotti? Am I anti-Italian? I mean, this is mental illness. This is how people have been trained to be dishonest, intellectually dishonest, delusional. And just because people have woken up to the New World Order, they haven't woken up. Again, I don't grieve because so many people lie about me and who I am and build these straw men about me and attack someone who isn't Alex Jones. I get upset for them because a lot of them aren't agents. They really think I've supported the IRS. They really think I'm promoting the Federal Reserve, its owner. And so we can't have a debate about Israel running false flags or try to save the internet. It's got to be how Alex Jones works for Israel, or schizophrenically, how Alex Jones is attacking innocent little Israel when Israel is admittedly here helping launch the Stuxnet, which then our government is using to take my free speech away. It isn't about Alex Jones. It's about preserving free speech, property rights, the right to self-defense, the family. I mean, if you've got those things and a relationship with God and know there's something bigger than yourself, you've got the engine of liberty and freedom. It isn't about Alex Jones, folks. It's about waking up and fighting tyranny. Don't you get it? With sword and It's just that we've all got to hang together or hang separate. And they are coming after the internet. They are coming after free speech. They are going to run more hoaxes like the Tucson shooter, who it now admits was an absolute liberal Bush hater. That's even in the New York Times. I told you 8 days ago he was clearly a cross-dressing devil worshiper. I know the M.O. of that crew. I study different strata of society. I knew the music he was into, all of it. Boom, knew instantly. It's only devil worshipers dressing up like Grim Reapers that can go around killing people. They're into it. What do you think the Nazis did? They dressed up in black outfits and wore skulls on their hat. I mean, when you're wearing skulls on your hat, folks, you're evil. When you wear your flag openly. Our troops would never have skulls on their uniforms until World War II. They started adopting some of the Nazi stuff. And then now today, it's just skulls, 666, all over the helicopters. I see it on the news all the time. And, you know, when you start putting 666 on your helicopter or your tank, or got human skulls, rotten heads on the front of your Abrams tank, those guys are coming back to be cops. And you think they're going to stop driving around listening to death metal and blaring, the Drowning Pool? And so then we see some guy taking hallucinogens every day who gets into really destructive type music. Even if you don't believe in God and a devil, they're tuning into that archetype. They're tuning in and manifesting a love of death and destruction. But you notice I am 180 degrees the opposite direction from somebody like this guy, but I'm still being blamed for him in the news. Long after they're not blaming Sarah Palin and Rush Limbaugh anymore, they're still, today, in the news, blaming yours truly. I always get the blame. And why is that? From every side. Because I'm real, ladies and gentlemen. And people can't believe there's somebody bold and real and legitimate. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. I fund my operation as best I can. Most revolutionaries in history rob banks. Founding fathers would rob British banks to fund themselves. I don't do that. I'm pretty darn moral. I try to be moral. But it doesn't mean I'm perfect. But I want freedom. I want decency. I want to be honorable. I want to be strong. I want to be credible. I want to help people. And the New World Order knows that, and that's why they build up straw men at every level of national media, local media, alternative media. They build straw men of who I'm not, and then say I am that bad thing as an attempt to tear down the image of Alex Jones, because if they can tear down the image of Alex Jones or Ron Paul or others, who, again, aren't perfect, but are the ones that we know have good hearts and are moving in the right direction, then no one has any faith. No one believes we can have victory. No one believes we can have success. They want you to believe you've already been beaten. The globalists want to remain foggy and faceless. They don't want you to see them in the eyes for what they are, humans just like us. I mean, who knows what's going to happen to me as things get more and more hardcore, as we get bigger and bigger exponentially. We are exploding right now. And quite frankly, I'm not like, yay, for my individual self. I'm mourning that because I realize how dangerous it is. And I realize that if I don't sell out, they're going to hurt me, whether in the media or individually or physically. But I'm not going to sell out. I'm going to continue to put the pedal to the metal for liberty. Besides, I've gone too far. I can't even sell out now. I mean, I'm committed to this, and I hope you're committed to it, because where the road leads you, if we don't get off of it, it's going to be rough and it's going to be hard, but it's going to be a lot better than going down that road. And to so many people that work for the government and work for these major corporations that have sold out, man, you've sold out to something that is going to destroy you. All right, I promise we're coming back in 60 seconds, going directly to Tim, Rick, Julio, John, David, and others. We'll go to David first in the Ukraine. Cameras in gas station bathrooms making national news. China announcing they want to accelerate the demise of the dollar. That's already in full swing. World's poorest harvest, AFP's reporting on. They're reporting on one poor harvest and we could have a collapse. We're going to get into explosive food prices, the biggest risk, CNBC. Told you about that several years ago because of commodity prices going up. I want to get into what's happening in Tunisia, but right now let's start going to your phone calls. We do have a guest on the last 30 minutes of the next hour. We got a lot of time to cover news and take your calls, and a lot of audio and video I want to go to as well today. Let's go ahead and talk to Tim in Michigan. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to Tim, but David in Ukraine. I want to go to David first in Ukraine. David, good to have you.
Thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and I want to say keep up the good work. You're doing a good job, and we all appreciate it.
Thank you. Are you an American living in the Ukraine, or are you a Ukrainian?
Yeah, I'm a first Gulf War veteran, and I've been living overseas since about '94. So, and that's one of the reasons that I'm calling. I got a couple of reasons. I watched a film on theendofamerica.com, or End America One. This Porter Stansbury, and he talks a bit about hyperinflation. I got a warning for Americans. If you think you're going to have a food shortage just because the crops fail, that's a big joke. When you see your currency devaluate 50%, 100% overnight, you will not find anything in the stores. The stores will not be open. They won't sell what they have. And I got caught up in that November 1st, 1994. I saw hyperinflation, the first time it was ever seen by the world. In Ukraine, they defaulted, and I went hungry for a week. If it wasn't for good people feeding me, there was just nothing. The society fell apart, and it took a good 2 weeks to get back to...
Can you imagine if people will riot and stampede each other at Walmarts to get a 5% or 10% discount on a computer game? What they'll do if there's not food and water for 2 weeks, they will riot and burn the cities to the ground, and the police and military will be in the middle-class areas taking our guns. That is their stated program during a crisis, is to not bring food and water, but to march in and take the guns. What did we see happen in New Orleans?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Well, I mean, for those that don't know, I mean, we're having a lot of big global crop failures because of all the strange weather. But the biggest issue, as you said, is dollar devaluation. But you notice as oil goes up, as gold and silver goes up on the charts, they never tell the public why food and all these things are going up. The big driver, I'd say it's got to be 85% of it or more. Some analysts say as much as 95%, is dollar devaluation. And here's the Chinese leader talking about it. But still... they claim the shooter was bad because he was worried about currency problems. See, you're a murderer. You want to shoot children if you're concerned about the dollar.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation. You know, I'm sitting overseas for the last 15 years, and, you know, it just seems like every time I hear a story about what's going on in the United States, my heart just breaks because it's not the place that I remembered. You know, and I'm really worried about, you know, my friends and family back there because when a currency devaluates, a lot of people think, you know, it goes on, you're real nice and slow and you got time to prepare. It can go down overnight. You can lose the farm overnight, and I've seen it happen, and it's not a pretty sight.
Well, don't worry. When they finally kill it in one big swoop, they're incrementally killing it now, and the Bilderberg Group stated 4 years ago they want an incremental. But even, you know, if you incrementally go down, let's hypothetically say on a graph of 10,000 points, since 1913 it's gone down about 90% or more, but that last 10, it accelerates. And so if you're on a 10,000-foot cliff and you walk down 9,000 feet, then you jump off the last 1,000, still going to kill you. And so, yeah, there will be, you know, downward spiral points in this, and they'll blame it on some low-level trader or somebody and give everybody a patsy to blame it on. We'll be right back. Chris Matthews of Slimeball. He's on the same network as Mr. Maddow. And it's amazing. He calls white people who don't want government-run health care crackers. And that's the equivalent of calling a black person the N-word. But again, why is it only open season in this country on Whitey? Well, Whitey's been taught this guilt and this self-hatred, not so that black people or anybody else can be uplifted, but that so Whitey, the so-called majority, will get behind giving their guns up, giving their property up. Oh, you don't want government-run health care written by the insurance companies to rip you off? I'll call you a racist if you don't. Oh, you don't want to pass some gun control? I'll call you racist. And the white people are like, no, no, I hate myself. I hate my culture. I hate my heritage. That's right. Every other culture and heritage is good, but yours. You're bad. Say you're bad. I'm bad. I'm scum. And then the race-baiting pimp lords, the fake eugenics liberals, like Chris Matthews, they get to sit up there and go, listen, you white crackers, you don't like health care, you're racist. And that guy, Carlos Watson on there can call you racist. And, oh, they don't like Obama, getting tens of millions a day on vacation. It's because he's black. Oh, really? They just rioted in Tunisia over the president taking too many big vacations and all the stuff his wife was buying. He's the exact same bloodline as the Tunisians. He's a North African Arab. Did they just riot because he's an Arab? This is ridiculous. Oh, I don't like the communist Chinese one-child policy. Oh, you don't like Asians. Actually, I'm saying they shouldn't kill Asians. Shut up, racist. I don't like Margaret Sanger. She's into eugenics. She said we have to pose as liberals to fool the blacks so we can abort them. Shut up, racist. Actually, I don't want to kill the black people. Shut up, Nazi. I'm a liberal. I'm Chris Matthews. I'm Mr. Maddow. They're the great high priest up there, and they tell us you do what we say or you're a racist. They're not liberals. They're not conservatives. They're corporate, General Electric-owned bomb makers. They are systematic sellers of 21st century New World Order eugenics Nazism. Do you think the devil comes masquerading as a guy in red pajamas looking like Anton LaVey? The devil comes as an angel of light. And the eugenics Nazi comes as a Mr. Maddow, as a Mr. Slimeball, as a Mr. Liarman. Don't you understand that? That's what they don't. So, of course, they're now resorting to crackers. They want black viewers to hate white people. And they know full well in their psych warfare operations that whites are going to see that become more racially hateful. And then they can sit up there as the referee, the big city poverty pimps. Going back over 150 years, in Boston and Chicago and New York and other mega cities, they put people in racial divides and then would have local mob bosses who were racially controlling, who would then meet with each other and decide how to manipulate their own groups through race. Because then they put up with corruption as long as it was somebody in their race doing it to them. And that's what Obama is. So, if you don't call yourself a cracker, then you're bad. Call yourselves crackers. Say you're bad. Pay your indulgence to Al Gore. Kind of like people 500, 600 years ago would have to pay money to the Pope to get their family out of purgatory. Let's all give everything. Okay, I said I'd cover that at the bottom of the hour, and I'm already ranting. I'll cover it at 45 after. I want to get to your calls. I apologize. We'll take a lot of them now. Tim in Michigan, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, Alex.
You can call me Cracker Jones, yes?
Hey, Cracker Jones, man. Yeah, it's Tim. I'm gonna get strictly into information today. First thing about China. There's a real simple reason why China doesn't want to get in any major conflicts with the United States. Number one is they are the main holder of U.S. currency in the entire world.
Yeah, over a trillion.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But we also are indebted to them higher than any other country.
No, our government's only going to advertise them as a military threat to get more corporate military welfare. China's being given the roads, the ports, the infrastructure. So are the Arabs. So are the European, Israeli companies. It's a complete fire sale. And China is being given all of our missile secrets, jet fighter secrets, AWACS secrets. China is going to be the new model, and we're being phased out. But China only controls our debt, teamed up with the private Federal Reserve, who they signed agreements with when our government put Mao in 49. This is all on record, now declassified. And so it's even on History Channel, they even admit it, that they, sabotage Chiang Kai-shek. What the far right said in this country was true. Chiang Kai-shek, Americans would citizen groups would pay to give them armaments, pay to get boatloads of guns, and then the CIA would take the bolts out of the guns and say, here you go, Chiang Kai-shek, you go ahead and run to Taiwan. And Mao was given the power because our government was secretly funding communism. Well, they'd openly funded Uncle Joe Stalin. And so China made that deal. They publicly let everybody know that in the 1970s, and you know that China was our new buddy. So China is to slowly absorb the United States, drive down wages, make sure nobody can compete with them. That gives the globalists, the mercantile, through the modern 21st century mercantile model, the system to muscle out any competition. Once things are vertically integrated, then the police state fully comes into play. Then we go into a police state mode. And then the bankers are going to use the U.S. and China as their offshore as two titans that they play off against each other. And when one gets too powerful, they'll sick this titan on the other titan. When the other gets too powerful, they'll sick them in. And so it's all a big management system. You understand?
Yeah, I do. I got another question for you. I'm kind of on a crusade here about fluoride. You know, I know you want to kind of talk about, you know, more current stuff. But to me, as long as they're still putting it in my water, it's still mainstream news to me. I found two websites. I'm going to give you the websites real quick, and I made up my own flyer and also downloaded yours. But that city I actually live in, I say I'm from Detroit, but everybody that lives in Michigan says, yeah, I'm from Detroit. So in a manner of speaking. But anyway, I called this is a flyer actually says, I called the Mount Clemens Water Tech, and he has informed me that they add sodium fluoride to our tap water. Toothpaste tells us this crap is poison, and if your child eats it, here's a call poison control. This junk is toxic, but they want us to drink it. Why? Call them and ask. And I put the phone number on there, and at the bottom I wrote, do you love your kids and your family? And then I got that picture that you had up of a bag of sodium fluoride that says toxic, and it's got a few things that it attacks: central nervous system, bones, gastronomical system, teeth, you know, all that stuff. Anyway, there's a few websites I found. This woman, her name is Shelley Kramer. She did an extensive. It came out to be a 6-page.
No, listen. Go ahead and give the websites out because I got to move on. I mean, we have medical doctors, endocrinologists, brain surgeons, former top toxicologists from the government. I mean, that's who we have on with what we give to people, because that totally blows city councils away. I know there's a lot of folks that have compiled a big list of this, but I've got to move to other callers. Give the websites out quickly.
Okay, here we go. The title of it is Controversy About Sodium Fluoride is Used as Rat Poison, and the website is healthy/communications.com.
Good. I got to go. I appreciate your call. A caller called in and he said, I know you're covering other issues, but I want to cover fluoride that isn't getting covered. I spent probably 30 minutes of the 2-hour show yesterday off and on with fluoride. And we produced a video that is full of documents and links and medical doctors and the government now having to admit fluoride's hurting people. This is big breaking news. And you never know what viewers are going to watch. I mean, I can do a video about, you know, something that I think isn't, as important as other issues, and it'll get 1 million views. And then we put together a highly produced, very powerful video. And last time I checked, it's only had like 25,000 views. It's been up for 2.5 days. And the headline is, Bombshell, How Fluoride is Killing You and Your Children. Email it to everyone you know. It's up on prisonplanet.com with an article full of links to medical doctors backing up everything I'm saying, the other poisons that are in water, not just the fluoride. Get it out to everybody you know. It's on prisonplanet.com, or just type it into the search engine. Bombshell, How Fluoride is Killing You and Your Children. 10-minute video with an in-depth bibliography. It's like a video book. I mean, everything in it is links and documents, and it's all right there, and people have short attention spans. This will wake them up. Bombshell, How Fluoride is Killing You and Your Children. And this is something that we can do something about. This is something where we can start removing it out of our water, put a filter on our showers or our bathtub. That's where you absorb a lot of it. We know what it's doing. And now the government, because of pushback, has had to admit some of the health dangers. This is a big deal. So your family who's been in denial will now learn about fluoride, but the hundreds of other chemicals they're putting in, if you'll send them this free video. We're not even selling anything on the video. Most of what we do doesn't have an ad attached to it. though it probably should. I mean, how do you think we fund this operation? The news websites, the filmmaking, the TV studio that's almost done, the radio/TV studio we're in right now. We fund it through the products we promote. And the products that I promote are what I believe in. I mean, I believe that Dr. Joel Wallach has great products over the 20 years I've read about him. That's why we're promoting InfoWarsTeam.com. I believe that's a good product. I believe that gold and silver were a good buy. Has it been in the last 10 years? I believe my films are well done and informative. When you purchase them at InfoWars.com and the online video bookstore, it funds our operation. When you have a PrisonPlanet.tv membership, it funds our operation. We've still got that deal going for another week or so. 5 months free right now at PrisonPlanet.tv. Get that video on fluoride, get it out to everybody. We've got to warn them. We'll be right back. Kurt Nimmo's got an article at InfoWars.com today about the FBI openly federalizing the police and setting up all sorts of anti-terror operations in Portland, Oregon, just like they federalized Dallas and New York and Boston and Chicago and Miami. It's all unconstitutional, the threat fusion centers. So they're clamping down on the general public and surveilling us, but then leaving the borders wide open is my point. It shows how transparent all of this is and how fraudulent it is. But then we have Tarpley in the last 30 minutes on the Tunisia situation. Tunisian forces fight presidential guards near the palace. Sometimes I disagree with Tarpley's political answers, but I rarely disagree with his political analysis. You understand the difference? He's spot on, speaking 5 languages, doctorate in history, degree in economics, really has a deep knowledge of history and the forces that are out there. I just disagree sometimes with Tarpley's solutions, but I don't know anyone as informed and educated and who has a deep grasp of how things really work than Tarpley. And so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe socialism is the way. Of course, he'll argue and say, Alex, I do not like socialism. This is the American way, what I like. The American system. Roosevelt. Of course, I'm joking. Socialism is not the way. It always produces tyranny and bondage. And the bankers that Tarpley exposes so much are always financing it. But I don't want to get off into a rant about Tarpley. I'm out of control today. This is a short segment, too, but I'm going to get to at least this bank of callers. Let's talk to Rick in Florida. You're on the air. Go ahead. He just dropped off. Perfect timing, Rick. Julio in Illinois. You're on the air.
Alex, apologies. I'm kind of mumbled this morning because I'm getting sick from all these chemtrails. But before I get to what Lindsey Williams spoke of yesterday, if I could ask you for a huge favor at any of the info warriors who are listening, this is a simple thing, but it's going to expose the soon-to-be mafia boss of Chicago, Rahm Sugar Daddy Emanuel. Myself, Gary Franchi, and Wayne Madsen teamed together for an investigative report. If you could Google this, expose Rahm Emanuel. I mean, this gets into how shady Rahm Emanuel is, his secretive past, everything. Expose Rahm Emanuel. It's going to take you to a YouTube clip off of the Google search. If you InfoWarriors could do that, Gary Franchi and I will work.
Sure. I want to do that, Julio. It's just that some days I don't even take calls anymore because we don't screen calls, and it just turns into a wall-to-wall plug fest. You know, the last guy's got this to plug, you've got that to plug, and I enjoy taking calls, but they could become a thing of the past just because the listeners tell us they want to hear guests, they want to actually hear me. I like hearing from you. But I think we actually linked to that video, or it's up on the Alex Jones channel where they break down what a crook Rahm Emanuel is. But if the people of Chicago don't know that, they're getting what they deserve. But then there's the bigger issue, Julio, of how much fraud there is involved in Chicago. I mean, maybe you don't even have voting there. I mean, there is some evidence of even the Kennedy election being fixed out of Chicago, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's mainline history right there, stuffing the ballot box in the Chicago River. But off of that, again, if people could look that up, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, I understand. I heard you.
Quickly, what Lindsey Williams said yesterday, I mean, he's always right. Silver, I've been looking at the price right now. It's continuing to go down due to market manipulation. But my question for you, Alex, in terms of what Lindsey said is, with the way silver's going, could we do more of how they're manipulating the silver market? I know you've done specials with Max Kaiser in the past, but I don't think people really know how deep the silver manipulation is going. And then also, no one's talking about what's happening in Arizona, who this Lochner guy's lawyer is. She represented CIA nut jobs in the past, like the Unabomber, Timothy McVeigh, and someone who was with Al-Qaeda, whose name
whenever you see these lawyers that have represented mind control victims in the past, and it's in the L.A. Times, Alexander Cockburn had an article on it. It was declassified that Kaczynski was in MK-Ultra program. He's in the mind control program, but then we don't understand this was a staged event. And this Lochner thing, it's got all the telltale signs. I agree with you, Julio. Great points. We're going to be right back with more calls. Let's talk to John in Ohio. John, you're on the air.
Hey, Alex. Well, I guess the whole rest of the nation, as evidenced by Chris Matthews, are going to get the same treatment that people from Kentucky, West Virginia, and Mississippi have been getting now for the past 60 years, because for whatever reason in Hollywood, if you notice the way they portray in movies, you'd have Dazed and Confused, which was done in Texas, which was portrayed pretty even-handedly. You transfer that movie to eastern Kentucky, where my family was from, it would have been down, stupid, everything else. So they've been bashing everybody like this for a long time, but they're now expanding the bashing program, if you know what I mean.
Oh, that's right. Everybody who lives in the South is married to their sister and has no teeth and is scum, and anybody that owns a gun hates black people. And then I see black folks on TV going, yeah, these racist whites want their guns. Don't those poor black folks know the first gun laws were disarming black people after slavery ended, because folks in the North and the South said, we're not going to have these black people owning guns so they can protect themselves? I mean, it's so sick to watch the poverty pimps that sell race and all of this division. And they sell feminism, admittedly CIA-funded, Miss Magazine, to break up the families so we're all isolated, so the state can come in and control our lives, and to watch them up on their high horse, and to watch him say, you're a cracker. That's the equivalent of N-word to black people. You're a cracker, and it's a white guy saying it, and it's supposedly cute and funny. They want race war. They want racial division. They want to be the referee. They lied and said that the shooter out in Arizona was a white guy, was a white supremacist, though that turned out to be false. He was a guy drugged out of his mind. If he was anything, he was a mainline liberal. And now more and more is coming out on that front. These people are a pack of liars. But here's the good news. 10 years ago, that hoax they ran would have worked. Within days, the hoax was exposed, and now you notice they've dropped it. And now it's all about mental health. Oh, we need to get everybody screened in America to see if you're mentally ill. Then they want to give you drugs that on record make you go psychotic, make a certain percentage become violent. Then we'll have an even bigger epidemic of this stuff happening.
Alex, and another thing I wanted to tell you was I believe instead of the scenario, we are headed towards another scenario I call the perfect storm. I believe that 2012 is a real thing only in the sense of this. I think there is going to be destruction, but the question is, I believe it's going to be government-made destruction. I think there's a guy named George Green who was on a Project Camelot. I don't know if he's true or not, but he has said something about there is a group that is planning a destruction of the United States in a couple areas using neutron weapons and stuff like that. And this is the reason why they've built the Denver airport and the other places. The Bushes are moving to Paraguay, and a bunch of other things is going on right now. And I think with 2012, 2013, we're going to see the slave system, the full destruction come in the next 2 years, 2, 3, 4 years.
Well, actually, Bertrand Russell, Nobel Prize winner, and many others have openly discussed using neutron bombs on the people of the world. They said they'd have to have a global government first to then carry out a coordinated neutron bomb attack simultaneously through the United Nations of all the major capitals, Tokyo, Moscow, London, Paris, New York, D.C., all the major city centers to reduce the world population for the Earth. And it only kills the life forms in the cities, and then allow the rewilding of that because humanity is, quote, a cancer. And so I have seen A lot of discussions. Cheney wrote in the PNAC document, September 20th, 2000, Rebuilding America's Defenses, about the use of race-specific bioweapons. He said, no, we need to get the media to condition the public that race weapons are good. And so, yes, they have all these weapons, and they are openly discussing it. I appreciate your call, John. Really good point on that front. I'm going to get into the cracker comment in a moment if you think I'm joking. See, when they hype up racism and they don't like black people and all day, that's meant to get us at each other's throats. And if that won't work, then it'll be mobilize the, quote, minorities, who are really the majority now in this country, together against cracker. But not the cracker up there race pimping, Chris Matthews. See, he's a master cracker. He's a controller cracker. So all of us that don't want to be under government-run health care and the death panels that are now admitted, first they denied it, we're dirty crackers. And see, then that kind of rekindles, well, it's all right to be racist against a cracker. That's why I've got to see the names of Hispanic radio and TV stations called the La Infosora, the Raza, which means the race, the La Reconquista, the reconquering. So the invasion, the reconquering, the race. La Raza has giant functions with hundreds of thousands of people meeting, you know, at daily, at yearly events on a single day across the country. And I've seen the tapes of it and played it with mayors and Congress people saying whites are evil, soon they'll be dealt with, yay, ah, rah, 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 and just huge crowds of people, raza, raza, and it's like, but then, and then Matthew's like, shut up, crackers. See, all of that is okay. See, so they're openly saying it's okay to hate white people. They're the devil. They're the bad men. And that's only because the globalists are going to try to get us all fighting with each other as we go into this depression. And the globalists always use, quote, outsiders or people that are seen as outsiders because then they will come in and be oppressors. I've had members of parliament on from England who will, you know, admit that about half their CPS are foreigners who can't even speak English. Because they come from authoritarian countries, mainly white Eastern Europeans, not bashing white Eastern Europeans. It's just they're finding white Eastern Europeans who like to steal kids, who like to oppress, who grew up in that, who like the authority, who like the uniforms. And so they're unleashing hell upon everybody. But, I mean, it's incredible. I could have Glenn Spencer. In fact, maybe call Spencer and see if he's not on the road. Have him hook up his computer clips so we can hear the mayor of L.A. and all them talk about go home pilgrims and we're going to get you and your last gasp of white people and whites are the devil. I've got a tape of the old Gus Garcia mayor in Austin openly saying that that Hispanics are a superior God race, part alien. You think I'm joking. They had a city proclamation of the supreme cosmic race of Hispanics. And again, I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, whatever, but don't sit there on a high horse spewing racism, spewing we're going to get the white pilgrim cracker, and then tell me, oh, you don't like that? Well, you're just a cracker. Get in the ditch and die. When it's all master crackers like Chris Matthews. See, I'm already covering this. I'm going to get to it coming up. Let's talk to Fast Pace, California. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Fast for peace? Yeah, fast for peace. That's the solution. Fasting will detox us and return health, immortality, and mental health from the top down. But, well, first you have to know that the economy operates under Parkinson law, which is the most tax for the most jobs, and that's the only reason all this is happening, and creating enmity, divide, conquer, and is working exactly like it's worked from day one. The Constitution was there not to protect free enterprise, not freedom. And under free enterprise, any guy or any few can walk away with all the loot. So nothing is different than it's ever been if you're into government. Government means money changing, economy. That's all it is.
Yeah, but our government was set up to not have the money changing, and it certainly isn't perfect, but the big corrupt British Empire tried to stop it, and the model that this government was set up on, the globalists have done everything they can, fast for peace, to pull that down. So, and you talk about free market, this isn't a free market we have. This is an insider trading crony system.
all the governments of the world didn't just get there by accident. They were all set up to fight with each other, to create enmity and divide the spoils. There's 500-plus border wars going on at all times. Nature wars. We're losing the sun. We need the sun fast to bring back the sun. They're trying to deflect it, but they're acting hastily.
All right, well, listen, I appreciate your call. It's good to hear from you, ma'am. Scott in Illinois, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, buddy.
I'm sorry. I must have skipped out. Love your show. Thank you so much for doing all you do. I prayed to the Lord that I'd get on today to get this message out, and I actually heard it from the Vulcan. And he said the only way to cure all this, Alex, is to starve the bankers. What do you think about that?
When you say the Vulcan, you talking about some internet handle or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you do need to starve the bankers. The problem is the bankers can create all of the energy credits or money, symbols of energy, that we will then give up our energy, our labor, our products, our handiwork, our art, our bodies for these symbols that are made out of nothing. So the bankers, through their greatest Ponzi scheme in history, get the whole world for nothing. As Thomas Jefferson said, if you ever allow private banks to issue currency and credit, we will, our grandchildren will wake up homeless on the continent their forefathers conquered. And so it's you know, people say, take your money out of the banks or don't pay taxes. The bankers only have you pay taxes to slow down the economy, to control it, to redistribute money, to give some value to their fiat system. Non-compliance is good just because of the act of saying no and getting outside the system and growing an alternative black market economy is what they would call it. People say, well, you know, Alex, why do you still pay income taxes? I mean, I openly explain that because I choose my battles. I've watched all these very brave, conscious, well-meaning people go to prison when they stop paying the taxes. Now, I've seen some people win in court, and we're seeing a reformation, a wake-up along that. So I have guests on exposing that the income tax is a fraud set up in 1913, that most Americans didn't have to pay the tax till the 50s, that it's been phased in, that it doesn't fund the government, and that we should get rid of it. But that doesn't mean get a value-added tax as the replacement or on top of it, as a lot of well-meaning conservatives have been conned to start promoting. So there's that going on. And so I have to choose my battles and you know, try to not fall into their pits. I mean, if I wanted to choose the income tax situation as the place to stand, I could get the lawyers, get ready, prepare to be arrested, go through the court hearings for years, like a Joe Bannister or a Cryer, and maybe win. But I'm having them on instead, showing what heroes they are. See, we're all choosing battles. My mission is to get the word out about the corruption and to cross every T, dot every I, to try to, again, operate completely within the system so that I can be inside the matrix and destroy it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, Alex. What about like a Google bomb? We have like a bank bomb. So one day we just stop all activity, bomb them, show them how powerful we are, Alex.
Well, you know, we've tried to do the silver situation. If you look at a 10-year or even 5-year or 1-year silver graph, it's going straight up. And it was like $20 an ounce, you know, just 4 or 5 months ago. Now it's been up between 28 and 30. And the bankers are trying to manipulate it down. It ran back up last week. They manipulated it back down. But if you look at the long-term graph, we're winning that fight. All-time physical purchasing of silver, Bloomberg reported, has been at all-time highs the last 2 weeks. So silver in the real world is selling for well above $30 an ounce, even though it's $28 an ounce, and you know, in spot, or I'm not sure what it is today. Will you guys look up spot silver for me? Thank you. So more and more we're revealing the fraud of the paper market versus the real market. And I mean, what's your idea, Scott, for a bank bomb? And of course, they'll take that out of context. You mean a peaceful InfoWar bank bomb? I mean, what do? Pull all our money out of the banks? On what date? Or, I mean, what do you think that's going to do?
Nothing like that, Alex. A peaceful demonstration of the people, of the masses, and we do it one day at a time. And we all choose not to use our credit card. We all choose not to fill up gas on one day. We all choose not to drink Coca-Cola one day. We all choose one thing.
You're talking about a national or global strike.
No, an InfoWars strike.
No, I agree with you. No, that's good. I think we should have a global strike. We've had guests on about, every 15th having a strike. And what the French do of having their farmers block highways, that's one of the most effective things. Here, the police will actually beat you and taser you as an attempt to not let citizens, demonstrate. But I think you're going to see more and more of that. Good idea. We should all debate it and discuss it and look for a date. I mean, I think national strike every year on April 15th. That's coming up. I think every 15th have a strike. But, I mean, that's up to the listeners to take action with. I mean, I wouldn't do a Google bomb on that today because we need to write articles about it, codify the idea. I said last week I want to have a contest for $10,000, $7,000 first place, $2,000 second place, $1,000 third place for videos countering the TSA asking citizens to make videos for Homeland Security to air on the 9,000 telescreens telling you how dangerous the internet is. See, they know the power of the citizens, so they want to get you serving their evil. We've had a lot of contests exposing the banksters, but I've got to get around to writing up the rules, how we want it to work, getting it up on the site. But I'll try to get that done today and get that going. And, yeah, the idea of a national strike every April 15th, I think is a great one. So, I mean, let's call for it now. But we need to get the articles together, the plan, the reasons, why we're doing it. I mean, really, I just can't organize and deploy all of it. But I do appreciate your call. It's a great idea, Scott. Let's talk to Brad in Michigan, then Scott, Pamela, and Jeff. Go ahead, Brad. You're on the air.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
I am trying to wake people up, and really I use 9/11 to expose a lot of this. With all of the evidence we have in 9/11, why can't we get a new investigation? What is really stopping that? And
well, they tried to have one. Okay, go ahead.
And if we can't get a real investigation, how come we can't with the nano evidence and all of that? Why can't we at least file formal indictments, at least against a security company, and force them to talk under court order or something? I mean, what's really stopping this process?
Well, if you want to go after Marvin Bush that ran security, that is a plan. Politically, you could go try to do FOIA request or do you get them into a lawsuit and then have the interrogatories. You could depose them. That takes a lot of money and a lot of will to sue the mafia. 9/11 Truth in New York, who I've supported, We Are Change and others, has tried and gotten the signatures for a city investigation, and the judge threw out the signatures even though they had 10,000 plus extra. But we're winning in the court of public opinion. We're airing the Building What campaign ads that our listeners have contributed to, and we've won the court of public opinion worldwide. So now they can't just stage these events and then get away with it. People know who's behind it now. There you go. You are a cracker, meaning you're a bad white person. It's bad to be white. It's bad to be European. Whether you're Romanian or Italian or Austrian or German or French or British or Russian, it is bad to be white. That's what I was taught in public school. That's what I was taught at college and why I got out. Didn't matter what class it was. They would go to the front. It was always a white person and tell me how bad white people are and how wonderful it is that we're going to die off. And then if you say, well, I'm not bad, I like everybody else's culture, but it's not bad if you're proud of being Scottish or Irish or or that your great granddaddy was British or German. I mean, what does that mean? I mean, like everybody's culture, but the cracker. And notice the message is, if you don't like socialism or if you call Obama socialist, you are a cracker. There's nothing worse than being a white person. What do you think the N-word is? It's saying you are black and you're not worth anything. It's bad to be black. And now it's bad to be white. And there's a celebration You watch the culture, the media, it's all destroy your culture, because the globalists don't want any cultures out there. They want to erase your culture so they can replace it with the corporate abortion culture, the corporate euthanasia culture. And Slimeball and Mr. Maddow and all the rest of them on that network, they hate strength. They hate unity. They hate anything that's established. There are some really bad spots in the Muslim world. There are some oppressive systems, and I don't support a lot of it. But they are still anti-abortion, anti-globalist. And so because they don't totally give themselves over to MTV with TV shows telling young girls how cool it is, they have a show about how cool it is to have abortions, because the Muslims won't give up their cultures and their family and won't give in to the corrupt banking system. They're against the usury and the rest of it. They have to be eradicated. They have to be destroyed, because that culture is far superior to this corporatoid death culture. So anything that won't give in to the New World Order is bad. And so if you're Christian, you're bad. If you've got any type of values, you're bad. If you want to be a steward of liberty, you're bad. And remember what Margaret Sanger said in all those letters. She said, we've got to pose as liberals. We've got to hire black leaders. We've got to, the blacks will never suspect us if we act like we're fighting for their civil rights. That way we can get close and get rid of these weeds. And those are in letters to the Colgates, letters to the Rockefellers. They openly funded her. They openly funded Hitler and the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute. And they have done a good job. I kept saying 51% of blacks since Roe v. Wade haven't been born. I'm sorry, 52%. And so if you're for killing 52% of blacks, you're liberal, you're good. But if you're against killing 52% of blacks, you're a cracker, scum, racist. These are limousine liberals. These are poverty pimps. Look what they've done to the black community. In the 1940s, blacks had below 50% out-of-wedlock marriages. They had their own thriving, very wealthy communities, their own powerful colleges. And the system came in and destroyed all of that. And I'm not saying that changes weren't needed. I'm saying the changes that were brought in were to come in and say, here's some money, don't have a man in the house, because we're going to put your kids in prison. You know, the social engineers knew that. They didn't tell mama that, though. See, so that's what Chris Matthews and all of them are. They are poverty pimp, 21st century children of the Nazis.